As someone who's been in the commentary community for over a year at this point, things can be pretty dry when it comes to topics to make videos on. There are people who get around this inconvenience by either milking topics so much that the entire population of cows and goats want to take a swan dive off your nearest cliff, or by doing a bunch of live streams and shitposts that pad out your content so your channel doesn't die. I personally try to do the latter, but it doesn't always work out, so most of the time there are day to week long gaps between my uploads. I used to really hate not uploading for a bunch of time, but then I realized as long as I stayed semi-productive during these upload gaps that I'd be okay. So I started writing, and now I'm gonna complain about problems that me and other writers have had. Now roll that new intro.
I'ma fuck up my life. I'ma fuck up my life. We gon' party all night.
Now as a writer, we tend to think we have a ton of problems when we really don't, and due to our complaining, we've made ourselves such a wonderful reputation. I mean, look at these Google searches. And since this is the way writers and artists are looked at nowadays, all I can say is, good job. This is exactly what we deserve. People become hypersensitive to things and it's just laughable at this point. I mean, look at the people who try to stream Jackbox. Society has somehow made so many people apologize over a game that was literally created to be offensive. But back to writing, I tend to struggle with some of these issues myself, so I'll try to pick problems that we as writers overall go through. Number 1, writer's block. If you don't know what writer's block is, you may leave the video. Okay, but in all seriousness, writer's block is when you feel like you've either ran out of creativity or you just have no ideas. This is probably the number 1 problem that both artists and writers face just because it's so often and it can happen at any time.
So, isn't that just a first world problem?
Congratulations, you understood what I said in under 30 seconds. Pat yourself on the back. Number 2, reader assumptions. I think this one may be more of a pet peeve than anything else that I talk about, but I've seen people talk about this one, so I included it. Now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of things you can assume from somebody's writing. Sometimes you might be correct, but it seems like people only ever assume 2 things. Either 1, the character or the story is you or about you, or 2, you're into some like freakish adult fetish thing that I can't talk about. Despite this one being a bigger pet peeve than anything else on this list, I understand why it's a problem, because if people assume that if the story is like super personal, if it's like your friend passing away or something like that, it can kind of be insulting. Number 3, people wanting you to write about them. This is kind of the same situation most artists have frustrations with. People just ask them to draw them at random. You're in the middle of writing a story and you're just writing about whatever you're writing about, and then some rando goes,
"Hey, I really like your stories. Can you make one about me?"
Like, no, I'm writing a story about bloody murder, so unless you want to get brutally murdered in this story, I suggest you write your own. Number 4, being scared to publish your work. Anxiety at its finest, am I right? Like you spend hours upon hours crafting and executing different ideas. Then when you're about to publish it, your heart starts to beat faster. You begin to feel like you shouldn't be doing this. You know if you don't post it, it would be hours upon hours down the drain, but part of you just doesn't care. You're just way too nervous to post it because you'd be criticized. All of that time and energy spent, and you're debating on whether you should even post it or not. Yes, the anxiety is that dramatic. I know from experience.
Number 5, search history.
This is probably one of the biggest issues writers face, especially if you make horror stories like I do. You have to search up things like, what does a dead body smell like? Or how long does it take for someone to decompose? Or how long does it take for someone to bleed out from a stab wound? And if somebody sees your search history, you have a 50-50 chance of it going well, because if somebody sees your search history, you're lucky if they don't call the FBI or send you to a mental hospital because of it. Especially if it's your mother. You're lucky if she doesn't go through your search history at all, because imagine the first thing she sees being murder methods or something like that. She's probably gonna freak out. And last but not least,
this person writes better stories than you do.
Okay. What do you want me to do about it? Write a murder story about them and then make that story a reality? Blacklist them from all of Wattpad? Like, I don't know what you want me to do about this. I don't know if you're trying to use this as like an encouragement method, but it doesn't really work considering that you know that there are tons of people out there that do the same thing as you and often do better than you, and then you just have to point it out in the comments. Whether you're trying to use these words as an encouragement method or not, I recommend you really not do it, because it can really be discouraging to new writers like myself. Your words affect people more than you might think they would, and hearing a bunch of times that there's always going to be somebody better than you and that you're never going to be like them can be so discouraging, especially if you're a new writer trying to seriously get into writing because you want to be an author one day. Just keep that in mind next time you want to give somebody some criticism. If you're still here, I'd really like to say thank you for watching to the end. I know this video is different from anything else that I've made on my YouTube channel, editing, visualize, and even the subject matter. But since I started writing, I've always had the idea of making a rant video about it in the back of my mind, and I finally decided to make it. This video is mostly inspired by Tabs' Artist Problems video, so if you have time, be sure to go check that out. It's a really good video. If you really want to read bad horror stories, I'll leave a link to my Wattpad in the description below. Thank you to the cameos who are here in this video. I'll leave a link to their YouTube channels in the description below, and I think that's pretty much it. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.